Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about the movie The Blind Side, and just an overview of what I'll be going over. I'm going to first state my research question, and then talk about how the movie The Blind Side relates to expectation violations theory, and then move in to giving a little overview of what the movie The Blind Side is about, even though I'm sure many of you are already familiar with it. And then I will analyze specific situations in the movie and how it relates to expectation violations theory. Now, my research question is, in the film The Blind Side, what accounts for mixed reactions by Michael Orr and the Tuohy's friends about the love shown to Michael? Now, I'm going to be relating it to, like I said, expectations violations theory, and all my information about that comes from A First Look at Communication Theory by M. Griffin, Andrew Ledbetter, and Glenn Sparks. So, expectations violations theory is just that, and a violation of what we expect from other people. And the book listed a few different concepts, and the ones that I will be focusing on today are personal space. Personal space is a huge issue, and everyone has a different range of personal space. For some people that you're not as comfortable with, it'd be farther away than people who are like your friends or your family, who they could be very up close and personal with you without you feeling an ounce of uncomfortable. And then facial expression, eye contact, touch, and body lean are also other ways that our expectations can be violated. If someone's not our close friend or we're not really familiar with them and they come up and give you a hug, I mean, that level of touch can make one feel quite uncomfortable and violate their expectations. And another aspect that this chapter really focused on was violation valence. Just because someone violates our expectations doesn't necessarily mean it's in a negative way. It could be in a positive way as well. So I'm going to start out by talking about the family Thanksgiving dinner that, I'm going to describe the movie first. So in the movie, the main characters are Leanne Tuohy, the mother of a very wealthy family, and Michael Orr. And Michael Orr went on to play NFL football, but his life wasn't always that glorious. Growing up, he came from the projects. His mother was addicted to drugs, and when the Tuohys first met him, he was walking in the dark on a really cold night, and they pulled over, and Leanne asked where he was staying that night. And Michael replied that he was just going to stay on the street. So Leanne invited him to their house, even though her husband was a little bit hesitant about it. And he slept on their couch that night, woke up the next morning very early, folded all the blankets, and left. But Leanne caught him just right before he was about to leave their the gated area of their house, and invited him to keep staying there. And eventually they became very close, and they wanted to become legal guardians of him. And this was something completely new to Michael, because Michael never really knew what a family was, as he was sleeping on couches or out in the street. He really had no home. And so when he started to become part of the family, he was put in situations that were completely out of the norm for him, which would be considered normal for most of us. So the first scene that I'm going to be talking about today is their Thanksgiving dinner. Now, they were all at the table, and like you could just tell that he felt uncomfortable. His eye contact was not held with someone at the table. He was kind of just looking all over the place, a bit frazzled, because he never really sat down and had dinner with a family before, as his family was completely broken. And then Leanne said it was time to pray. And immediately you could tell by his face that was a very uncomfortable situation for him. He'd probably never prayed before in his life, as Leanne's daughter, Collins, and her son, SJ, they reached out their hands because they hold each other's hands when they're praying. And he kind of didn't really know what to do and felt really uncomfortable because that wasn't something that he was used to. So hesitantly, he held their hands, and that really violated his expectations, like I said, as he was never really put in a situation like that before. And then after that, then they took a family photo. And like I said before, Michael really never had a family, so I can't imagine that he'd been put in that situation or exposed to that situation before either. And they invited him in the family photo, and he kind of just like stood there, not as close as the rest of them because his spatial norm was different than theirs. But eventually, then they like pulled him in and tried to make him look like he blended in with the family as well. But that was more of, like I said, there was negative and positive valence, and that was definitely more of a positive experience for him, because although it was something he wasn't used to, it was good for him to be exposed to that and have a sense of family. And then I'll be playing this clip, and this is the next scene that I will be in.
Hey, does Michael get the family discount at Taco Bell? Because if he does, Sean's gonna lose a few stores.
He's a good kid.
Well, I say you make it official and just adopt him.
He's gonna be 18 in a few months. Doesn't really make much sense to legally adopt.
Leanne, is this some sort of white guilt thing?
What will your daddy say?
Before or after he turns over in his grave? Daddy's been gone 5 years, Elaine. Make matters worse, you were at the funeral. Remember? You wore Chanel in that awful black hat. Look, here's the deal. I don't need y'all to approve my choices, all right? But I do ask that you respect them. You have no idea what this boy's been through, and if this is going to become some running diatribe, I can find an overpriced salad a lot closer to home.
Leanne, I'm so sorry. We didn't intend to.
No, we didn't, really.
I think what you're doing is so great. To open up your home to him, and I mean, you're changing that boy's life.
No. He's changing mine.
Alright, so in that scene there are different factors that play into it, and the textbook described different relationship factors that can lead to expectation violations theory, and one of them is similarity. Now, the reason they were so shocked about this is because Michael and the Tui family were not similar in many reasons at all. Michael grew up very poor and homeless, while they lived a very luxurious life and had basically everything that they could ever ask for. And another thing was that the book described was communicator demographics. And like I said, Michael grew up in a completely different area than they did. Like, Michael could have never imagined being in their neighborhood growing up. And so that was such a shock to these ladies, as they too lived a very wealthy and rich lifestyle. So they would have never put Michael in that family. And another factor that goes into it is that Michael was an African American male, and they were a white family. So they didn't really see him as fitting in. So that really violated their expectations for why Michael didn't fit in with them. And so that's why kind of they took more of a joking approach to that. And that is an example of negative violation valence, as what they said, clearly nothing good could possibly come from that. And so today I talked about my research question, which is led to being answered by the expectations violation theory, and I just looked at different concepts of how that could